this man could run me over with his car. The time has come for me to sit down and give you guys a complete fantasy romance guide. This is for beginners, people well seasoned in the fantasy romance genre, people who want to get into it even more, people who want some new recs, people who want to hear me talk about my favorite genre and some of my favorite books of all time. Before I get into it, you guys already know, grab yourself a beverage, okay? Grab yourself a snack, get comfy, get seated, because this is gonna be a long one. We are starting off this video with none other than Mother herself, Miss Sarah J. Maas. I'm starting off with her books because I am nothing if not basic. I am like every other bitch. I never claimed not to be. ACOTAR is what got me back into reading, so it holds a special place in my heart. And I think her books are a perfect starting point. And I also think that every single person on the planet needs to read them. And this is the order that I would recommend reading her books in. Starting out with ACOTAR, okay? Personally, say what you want to say. I don't care, okay? I think this is worth all the hype that it gets on the internet. This is fantasy romance perfection. I think this is perfect for beginners too, because it introduces you to a lot of world building, magic systems, kind of what you can get from peak fantasy romance. And it also is pretty romance heavy. So if you are, say, a romance reader, I think this is one of the reasons why so many people love ACOTAR. It's because the romance is so good. But it's very straightforward and easy to understand. And what is so special about Sarah J. Maas books is that you get so emotionally invested in her characters and these worlds. It just, like, her books feel like home. The found families too, unfortunately, nothing really compares. The first 3 books follow Rhysand and Feyre, okay? And then we have a little Christmas novella. And then our last book, A Court of Silver Flames, which is my favorite, follows Nesta and Cassian. I am a Nesta girly. She is one of my favorite FMCs of all time. Say what you want to say about that. I don't care. I connect with her on such an emotional level. This is one of my favorite books ever. Roman Empire. I think about it every single day. Sarah J. Maas writes fae fantasy romance. And personally, like, something I've just accepted is that nothing compares to her books. Like, they're in a league of their own for me. ACOTAR will also introduce you to SJM Emotional Damage, the last 200 pages of an SJM book. It is a feeling unlike anything else. Yeah, this is dedication, guys, okay? So after ACOTAR, you are going to dive into my favorite series of all time, which is Throne of Glass. I get emotional just thinking about this series. This is my everything. After ACOTAR, I was like, there is absolutely no way anything could get any better. This is leagues better. Like I can't even explain it. That might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think it is. No, now this is so different from ACOTAR, okay? Don't go in with the expectations after reading ACOTAR that they're going to be the same, because they're not. I mean, it's still classic SJM writing. You still get those insane last 200 pages. You still have this is my favorite found family ever. And the characters are incredible, the emotional attachment, but this story is so much more complex. I mean, it's 8 books, okay? And this is considered more high fantasy romance, where the romance is a major subplot. It is more plot forward, but the romances that you get in this are phenomenal. And that's why I recommend reading ACOTAR first, especially if you are new to the fantasy romance genre, is because if you're familiar with romance, you're going to get more romance. The world building is a lot more intense in this as well. I mean, for me personally, I was sucked in from the jump. Some people say it's slower to get into. Not for me. Nope. This changed the trajectory of my whole entire life. It is an experience. It becomes your entire personality. It gutted me. The amount of times I cried, like, I can't even begin to explain the feelings this instilled in me. And there's some controversy with the reading order. I'm gonna give you my personal recommendation, just make things easier for you. I say always start with The Assassin's Blade, which is the prequel. So it takes place before this series. This is a masterpiece in and of itself, okay? Then you're gonna go into Throne of Glass, book 1, then Crown of Midnight. Then you are going to go into Heir of Fire, where, this is where things really start to get absolutely insane. You get introduced to one of my favorite FMCs. Then Queen of Shadows. And then I highly, highly recommend doing the tandem read of Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. You can find the tandem read online. It's an insane experience. If you don't want to do that, you would read Empire of Storms and then Tower of Dawn, and then go into my favorite book ever, Kingdom of Ash. The amount of tabs I have in this speak for themselves. My favorite man in this series, in case anyone was wondering, is Dorian Havillard. Yeah, he's number 2 book boyfriend. That man, don't even get me started. Once you have completed, and I can't even say recovered from Throne of Glass because it's just something that you will never recover from. I have never recovered and it's been years. So, but after that, okay, you are going to jump into Crescent City. Now this is definitely most different from the other 2 series. This is urban fantasy romance, so it takes place in a modern day setting. Like they have nightclubs, they have cell phones. It's kind of jarring at first, but urban fantasy romance is my favorite subgenre of fantasy romance. So I personally loved this so much. Throne of Glass is still my favorite. The first book is Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. In my personal opinion, this is one of Sarah J. Maas's best pieces of work. I think this is just an absolute masterpiece. Crescent City isn't a god tier series for me. It's one of my favorites, but as a whole, it's not god tier. But this book right here is. Some people are thrown off because there is a lot of world building in like the first 100 pages. So you get a lot of names, a lot of descriptions of places, people, the magic system, but just know that going in, especially if you are new to bigger world building. And this also has more romance similar to ACOTAR. It's not like Throne of Glass where the romance was more of a subplot. The main romance is Bryce and Hunt, and then the main plot in the beginning is this huge murder mystery. And it is so good. The first 2 books were 6 stars for me. Why I recommend reading this series third is because something about Sarah J. Maas is all of her series are part of a bigger universe. So they all take place in different worlds within the same greater universe, if that makes any sense. And in this series specifically, let's just say it's important to have read her other series first. And then the third book, her most recent book, we have House of Flame and Shadow. There are gonna be more books in this series, but Bryce and Hunt's story is concluded with these 3 books. This book gets a lot of heat. It is one of my least favorite SJM books, but I still loved it. Like this was 4 stars for me. Was I disappointed by certain parts? Yes, but I still ate it up. And Crescent City is similar to Throne of Glass in the sense that it is written in the 3rd person and it is multi-POV. So you get multiple characters' points of view. The first 3 books in ACOTAR, however, is just Feyre's POV and it is single POV. And then A Court of Silver Flames is also 3rd person multi-POV. So that is the Sarah J. Maas universe. I could talk about it all day. There's also so much foreshadowing and Easter eggs and little breadcrumbs. I have reread these series multiple times and each time I pick up on something new. If you love that, her books are for you. So I mentioned that urban fantasy romance is my favorite subgenre of fantasy romance. Even deeper, more specific, dark urban fantasy romance is my favorite genre ever. So what that means is that it takes place in a modern day setting and there are darker themes, darker elements. So there's gonna be some trigger warnings, some things that cause a lot of emotional damage and turmoil, and I gobble that up. So now we are going to go through some of my favorite dark urban fantasy books and series that I will never stop recommending. Starting with my favorite series next to Throne of Glass, we have The Zodiac Academy. I talk about this series all the time. I actually read this year and it feels like it was years ago. I'm already ready to reread it. I don't even know, why am I holding up all these books? Like what am I trying to accomplish here? Okay, there's a lot of them to say the least. I'm literally sweating. Zodiac Academy, okay? This series gets a lot of heat on the internet. Not for me. This is my entire personality. I will defend it with my dying breath. Something that's important to know about Zodiac Academy, okay? Is it a literary work of art? Literally, no, it is not. Do I care at all? No, I don't. The way that I binged this series, it was so unhealthy. Like, I eat, slept, breathed this. I didn't do anything else. This takes place at an academy setting. I mean, Zodiac Academy, okay? You get every single creature under the sun. There's vampires, there's werewolves, there's phoenixes, there's griffins, there's Pegasuses. One of the best, actually the best, enemies to lovers plot lines ever. Tori and Darius, I can't look at enemies to lovers any other way again. Also, the best professor-student relationship relationship, Lance and Blue, one of my favorite fictional couples of all time. I would actually die for them. They are my favorite characters in this book. It's so, I want to get Blue tattooed on my arm. Like I don't know. Tori and Darcy have lived in the human world their whole life. When they turn 18, Professor Orion comes to take them to the Fae world and tells them things that essentially turns their life upside down. They go to Zodiac Academy. It starts as a bully romance, okay? Keep that in mind. It develops into something that you could honestly never imagine. This will emotionally traumatize you. There are certain books, specifically book 4 and 7, that the endings live in my head rent free. Like, these characters simply cannot catch a break. Like, it's just destruction and disaster and catastrophe over and over and over again. I felt like I got hit by a bus. Obviously, I loved it. Something I also love about this series so much is the comedic relief you get. Like, it is so unserious and funny at times that you get emotional whiplash because you'll be dying laughing and then you'll be absolutely sobbing. I know this is not going to be for everyone. It is for me, and I will never stop talking about it. I'm literally getting giddy because I'm talking about all of my favorite series right now, and now I'm like emotionally, like, I think I'm gonna be depressed. I miss these books so much, guys. Ugh. Next we have, okay, the House of Devils series. For me, in terms of ranking of my favorite fantasy romance series, it would be Throne of Glass, Zodiac Academy, and then House of Devils. Anyways, what's important to know about this is that this has my #1 book boyfriend in it, Darian Castle. And he's #1 in the sense that no fictional man has ever compared to him. Like, nobody even comes close. I feel like he's going to stay at #1 and until I'm old and wrinkly or rotting in my grave. The first book is City of Gods and Monsters. I tabbed almost every single page. One of my favorite worlds, one of my favorite romances. This is one of the best slow burns with so much angst and tension. It starts out with our FMC Loren's best friend going missing, and she needs to get the help of none other than Shadow Daddy Darian Castle, who is a dark slayer, which are magical bounty hunters. He slays demons. He could slay, I want him to slay my demons. And then Loren finds out that her life is also in danger because people are out to get her for some unknown crazy reason. So Darian ends up acting as her own bodyguard as well. Another world where there are so many different creatures and magical beings. We have angels, vampires, werewolves, I don't know what else. Also has a great balance of romance and plot. The world building is definitely a lot, so you're gonna have to give it a little bit. Okay, be patient. The action and battle scenes in this are absolutely insane. Like, I feel like I am teleported into these pages and watching them through the characters' eyes. Each book just keeps getting better and better and better. You get multi-POV starting in book 2. This is also in the third person. Another one of my favorite found families. Each and every character is so well written and has such a unique purpose. Like, I love books with emotional damage because it means that I'm emotionally attached to them. I get so invested in them and it ruins my life in the best way. The spicy scenes in this are so good. Like, I am gnawing at the bars of my enclosure every single time Darian Castle opens his mouth. The mouth on this man, everyone's like, oh, what are you tabbing in your books? It's like, you don't want to know. He's so filthy. I am filthy. The things I would do for him were just, you can use your imagination. The sun's gonna be like setting as we talk, so the lighting is absolutely going to change because we're gonna be here for a bit. I have to revert to my notes because you best believe I plotted this out. Oh, this is my most recent God tier fantasy romance series. There are 3 books out. There's gonna be 1 more coming out next year. I guess this year at this point. This is the Legacies series. The first book is Reign of Shadows and Endings. Now this is more of like a contemporary fantasy romance. What does that mean? Listen, I'm not entirely sure. Let me goog. It takes place in the present day and incorporates magical or supernatural elements in a realistic setting. So what's the difference between that and urban? Not my problem. This is one of the most unique stories. Now this definitely is one of the more darker fantasy romance series. It also has very complex, infuriating, toxic characters in here that will make you actually want to bang your head against a wall. I don't know why that speaks to my soul. It might not be for everyone, so just table that, okay? Anyways, okay, in this world, we have our legacies who are descendants from the god. We have fae and we have humans. And our legacies require fae blood to replenish their power. And the heir of each kingdom gets to pick a fae to be their own personal power source, and they get bonded to them mind, body, soul for life. And at the very beginning of this book, our MMC Theon picks Tessa, our FMC, to be his source. And that is the last thing she wants. This is true enemies to not even lovers, like it, to whatever they are, okay? Visceral hatred. They have a lot of growth to do. All of these characters, every single one of them is truly morally gray. So like they're gonna do things that you're gonna be like, I'm sorry, what? But why I love that so much is because there is so much room for character development and you get a lot of it. Theon is an MMC that you're gonna love to hate at first. An emo sad boy. He has a tortured soul. In this book, he's questionable and I simply am not forgiven. Like, I forgive you, I do. We have the Gods and Monsters series. The first book is the Book of Azrael. This is gonna be a 7-book series, by the way. There's 3 books out. The 4th book is also coming out this year. This series has another one of my favorite FMCs of all time. She, okay, Mommy Diana, is the morally gray one. You want a woman on her fucking revenge arc? Oh yeah, feminine rage at its finest. This is enemies to lovers back to enemies. Our MMC Samkiel, the deadly cinnamon roll god that you are, he quite literally burns down worlds for her. Samkiel is for the girlies. Like, he absolutely is. He comes out hiding because he finds out the creatures that destroyed his world are back. Guess who shifts into one of those creatures? That would be Diana. They're not dragons. I forget the name of them, and I also know I can't pronounce it, so I'm not even gonna try. Samkiel and Diana essentially end up having to work together because they're trying to track down this book, and I can't even begin to explain what happens from then on out because it just gets so crazy. Trauma. Have you raised your ya today? Oh, I feel like I'm running a marathon right now. Okay, next we have an underrated one in my opinion. Okay, this is the Savage Land series. It's a 6-book completed series. I'm gonna be so for real with y'all, okay? The last book, trash. The first 4 books, absolutely amazing. The 5th book, fine. 6 doesn't exist. And this is also kind of like how I describe Zodiac Academy in the sense that it's not a literary work of art at all. This is binge-worthy, pure entertainment. I think I read each of the first 4 books in a day. This is another, okay, true, we are all about true enemies to lovers over here. Like, I want to feel their hatred coming out of the pages. At the very beginning of this book, our FMC Brexley gets sent to the most deadly, dangerous prison that nobody has ever come out of. What she goes through in this prison, too, not for the faint of heart. And in this prison, she attracts the attention of Warwick, who is almost like a legend to people outside of this prison. They don't even think he exists. He basically runs this prison, and he doesn't give anyone the time of day, but for whatever reason, she catches his interest. Brexley gets herself into a little predicament where she has to fight in these pit fights in the prison to survive. There's a looming war between human and fae going on outside of the prison. Like, you do not catch a break in these books. The endings are crazy. I'm like reading it the whole time. I'm like, how can more happen? Like, I don't even know. But yeah, nothing revolutionary or groundbreaking, but so much fun and so easy to read. Then we have my baby, A Touch of Golden Madness. Okay, now this is the first book in a bigger series. There's only 1 book out right now. And then you also have the first book in the prequel trilogy, Embrace of Steel and Sorrow. That's also out. But you have to read this first. And now this is set in a post-apocalyptic world. So you don't have technology or anything, but you have these like dystopian vibes as well. I was obsessed with this world. Both our FMC and MMC are morally gray. This is another book where these characters are so flawed and have so much trauma and so much to work through. Now, I don't like that this is advertised as enemies to lovers because it isn't. It's reluctant allies to lovers. So it's important to have that understanding going in because it will make your experience better. She is a princess assassin and she was hired to unalive our MMC at the beginning of the book, which made me giggle. They have to work together because they are both set out on killing her father, who is the king. Griffin Silas is slowly going mad. He has voices in his head. I love this man. He has top 10 book boyfriend potential. It's like, ugh. This magic system is one of my favorites, okay? We have our elementals who have elemental magic and our kinetics who have kinetic magic, and they are at war. This is one of those books where you get plot twist after plot twist after plot twist. My jaw was just constantly on the ground. I had so many what the fuck moments. I didn't even know what to do with myself. And then the ending, this ending haunts my dreams. It keeps me up at night. I will not know peace until I have book 2. I'm also scared for book 2 because this made me sick to my stomach. I could not have seen this coming if you smacked me in the face with it. But again, what do we know about me? I'm easy to fool. So I don't know what that means. And then the prequel, we get our MMC's backstory, and it explains a lot of the ending of this book. And then their relationship, like, this is the type of love that is, I will find you in every lifetime. It has always been you. And it's my favorite type of love to read about. Are y'all still with me? Okay, this is our last dark urban fantasy romance series that I'm going to mention. It is the Bonds That Tie series. A good, easy, fun binge series that is, you know, the writing is the writing. It might be a little cringy at times, but for whatever reason, there's some sort of drug in it. Like, I could not put it down. And what is the most unique about this one? Okay, is this is the only reverse harem series I'm going to talk about. What is reverse harem? It means that there are multiple love interests. It is not typically my cup of tea. This is the only exception. So we have Ollie, our FMC, and she is bonded to 5 scrumptious men. And you simply don't have to choose. Now, Ollie has been on the run from these 5 men for reasons that you do not know at the beginning. They finally track her down after years and are furious with her. They hate her because she is the central bond of her bonded group. They all feel this pull and connection to her. The fact that she ran away is like absolutely unspeakable. There's this revolution going on. People are hunting down Ollie. So the plot is just so much fun and so easy to read, but you will have questions the entire time. I can't say much about this because I don't want to spoil anything, but then just the relationship dynamics between her and these men, like, there is something for everyone, okay? You get not 1, but 2 shadow daddies, and they are in fact brothers. The last 2 books though in this series, again, I am nothing if not honest with you guys. They were trash to me. I think they were like 2 and 1 star. I pretend they don't exist. First 4, so much fun. It just dragged out way, way too long. Now that's it for my urban fantasy romance recs, but I still have a few more dark fantasy romance recs. This one, oh my goodness, I am obsessed with this series. This is To Bleed a Crystal Bloom. There are 3 books out. It's not finished. I believe there's 1 book left. I have no idea when it's coming out. And this is like a dark Rapunzel retelling with Faye. Our FMC's entire family was unalived when she was just a baby. She was saved by this man. You could call him her captor, her protector, whatever you want. Okay, his name is Rorden. And he took her and she essentially has lived in this castle tower her entire life. She essentially knows nothing about the outside world. She has not stepped foot over property lines because she has been told that it is too dangerous and she risks losing her life. And for 19 years, she has seen very little of her captor, Rorden, other than every night he comes and takes a prick of her blood from her finger. And this entire time she has been very fascinated by him, as am I. And she starts to fall for her captor. And once she finally leaves the castle grounds, she finds out nothing was as it seems. This is so dark. The romance takes a bit of time to develop, but I was so invested in this. Don't trust anything. Nothing is as it seems. I just need more of it. Okay, the last dark fantasy romance on the list. I initially wasn't going to mention this, but because it's such a popular series, I feel like people have questions about it all the time. It's the Plated Prisoner series. This is a completed 6-book series. I have only read the first 4 books. And the reason why I wasn't going to mention it is because I don't know if I'm going to finish this series. I loved books 1 through 3, devoured them. Book 4 fell off a little bit for me, and I just kind of lost interest. Now, this is a dark King Midas retelling. We also have Faye. Our FMC Orin is gold touched. She's literally gold, and she's kept as King Midas's pet. She has been essentially brainwashed her entire life and manipulated. Her story is so heartbreaking. You don't really start to get the romance until book 2. There's no spice in book 1. She's traveling between kingdoms, and on her travels, she meets Commander Rip. Commander Rip. That man, another underrated bookman. Oh my God. Let me tell you, it is a slow burn, but the slow burn payoff is so worth it. There is a lot of court intrigue and politics. It's not the most action-packed, but I was still super invested and needed to know more as I was reading that I couldn't put at least the first 3 books down. Book 1 was good, a little slow to get into, but I still really enjoyed it. But because the beginning's a little slow and then it tapered off on the 4th book, I'm like, I don't know if I can recommend this, but I am obsessed with Orin and Slade's love story, and her journey and her growth is amazing. I do think because of that, I will end up finishing because I need to know what happens to them. Okay, moving on into the next category, and then after this category, it's just gonna be a free-for-all. All right, I tried my best. Now, one of my favorite things when done right, okay, in fantasy romance books are deadly games and trials. So I'm going to give you some book recs for that trope that are some of my favorites, and it's about time because you guys have been waiting for it. Did you think I would forget about Fourth Wing? Because this is also God tier for me. Like I said, I am basic. If there's a bandwagon, I'm hopping right on it. And I am a ride or die Fourth Wing girly. Another very popular series that I think is worth all the hype it gets. And also Iron Flame, the 2nd book, gets hate, not from me. Again, not from me. I loved this so much. I thought that this was perfect. Onyx Storm, book 3 comes out this month, and this is going to determine how the rest of 2025 goes for me. And I just know because it's book 3 and there's gonna be 5 books in this series, it's going to ruin me. It's going to be a huge cliffhanger. It's going to be so painful. I am so excited, but I'm terrified. Listen, okay, we are at an academy setting. Violet, our FMC, is training to be a dragon rider. She has to pass these different tests, I guess you could call them trials, to become a dragon rider, and it is essentially life or death. So okay, we're at an academy, which an academy setting is going to do it for me every time. We have dragons that you get bonded to and share a mind connection with. We have none other than Shadow Daddy Xaden. This man could run me over with his car. He could punch me in the face, and I would look him dead in the face and say thank you. And then I would probably pass out because I'd be hyperventilating if I was in the vicinity of this fictional man. The fact that he's fictional really pisses me off. It really makes me mad. We get training scenes, okay? We get enemies to lovers. Xaden and Violet also have a mind connection. Speaking in your mind, that is going to do it for me every single time. I don't know what that is. We also have a looming war revolution going on, an incredible found family. I love these side characters so much. Xaden and Violet's love for each other, listen, it's not perfect. It gets very messy, and I am here for the messiness. I would die for them. I would. I was not expecting to cry in both of these books. Both of these books had me absolutely sobbing, and I think book 3 is only gonna get worse. Okay, and then next for deadly games, okay, we have the Serpent in the Wings of Night and the Ashes in the Star-Cursed King. This is part of the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I love this series. Oriya, our FMC, she's a badass. I am obsessed with her, okay? She's a human living in a world full of vampires. And she enters these deadly games as the only human. I would say this is also reluctant allies to lovers, not so much enemies, but she has to work with Rain, who is a very powerful vampire. He is also so witty, and I am obsessed with their banter and their relationship. Another fantasy romance that I think the romance girlies would love, perfect for beginners. The ending of this goes crazy. The stakes are super high. The action is so well done. Book 2 slows down a little bit. Some people don't like this. I still loved it, but book 1 is definitely my favorite of the 2. Then we have Phantasma. Okay, this is the first book in an interconnected standalone series. So each book, there's only one book out, but when the next books come out, they're going to follow a different couple, but in the same world. Our FMC is a necromancer, and our MMC, He is a phantom. Yeah, I'm down bad for a ghost, and I am not upset about it. And Ophelia finds herself having to enter Phantasma, which is this deadly competition set in a haunted house. There are 7 different competitions that she has to go through in order to win, and each competition represents a different layer of hell. This is spooky, it's unique, it is spicy, it has tension, it has banter. It's also good for a nice one and done. Like, you get the conclusion, you don't have to get left on a cliffhanger, an easy fun time. Similar to that in that it's an easy fun time, one and done, you don't end on a cliffhanger, and part of an interconnected standalone series. We have Throne of the Fallen. Now, there are 2 books out in this series. Book 2, I did not enjoy at all, so I am not including that in my recommendation. Book 1, I loved. Our FMC gets roped into making this bargain with our MMC Prince Envy. And they have to go through these deadly games together to get something that they each want. Prince Envy is a prince of hell with a filthy mouth. They go on just this crazy, fun, magical, spicy adventure, and I was sad the entire time. Now it's just a free-for-all. Like, I'm not gonna categorize the rest because I simply can't and I didn't feel like it. But we have my favorite trilogy of all time, also a God tier trilogy. This is the War of Lost Hearts trilogy by Carissa Broadbent, and she's the same author of The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and this is underrated. Like, this is her best work, and it doesn't get nearly as much attention as Serpent and the Wings of Night, which is a crime. Now, this is definitely more high fantasy with romance as a subplot. I always recommend this to my Throne of Glass girlies. It's not the same at all, but it gives similar vibes in the sense that if you want that like epic high fantasy plot and not as big of a focus on the romance, you'll get that from this. Our FMC Tasana just escaped slavery, and she runs to the Orders, which is this group of magic wielders, and she wants to be trained by them so she could take down the people that enslaved her and free the rest of the slaves. And that is where she meets none other than Maxentarius Fairleoin, who he is the one that has to train her. And that is the last thing he wants to do. This man wants nothing to do with her. This is Grumpy Sunshine at its fucking finest. Maxentarius, I love this man. Like, he must be protected at all costs. Even though the romance is a subplot, this romance is beautiful. They are one of my favorite fictional couples. I think about them all the time, what they go through, how they are there for each other. Like, there are a lot of dark plans for Tasana. People want to hunt her down and use her for reasons that she doesn't understand. There is a war going on. The actions and battle scenes in all 3 of these books are absolutely phenomenal. We have a side story going on as well. If you like it when different characters are going on different journeys and in the end their story comes together so beautifully and just perfectly, and you're like, you never saw it coming, but it's everything you wanted and more. That is this trilogy. It's also heartbreaking. I had so many tears in books 2 and 3, which I cry a lot. So are we surprised? No. Now, if you're looking for some witches, okay, we have the Witchwalker series, which is not finished yet. There's 2 novels out and 1 novella, and I think the next book is coming out this year. I don't know how many books are gonna be in this series. Now, this isn't a God tier series for me. However, City of Ruin is a God tier book for me. This is the biggest cliffhanger I have ever been left dangling off of in my entire life. I am still dangling off of it. If I think about it too hard, I'm going to spiral into insanity. That being said, I can't talk about this book because it will spoil everything. Book 1, okay, our FMC, she is mute and she is a witch, but she's a witch hiding her identity. She has one goal and one goal only: to take down the witch collector and the king who took away her sister years ago. Just one problem: she needs the witch collector's help to save her sister. So those plans kind of go downhill. Something happens, and you know when you're reading a book and it happens and it makes you want to go back and reread the entire series so you could pick up on any foreshadowing that could have showed you this was gonna happen. Yeah, that was this. Daddy Alexis, the 300-year-old man that you are, the novella. This follows her sister and her sister's love interest, who is a god. I just simply don't have enough people to talk to about this series, so I'm never gonna shut up about it, and I'm always going to recommend it. It's literally dark out. Like, We have been sitting here forever editing this. It's going to take years off my life. It's because I love you guys. I also have no life. Wait, it's literally New Year's Eve. It is New Year's Eve and I'm sitting here filming my complete epic fantasy romance guide. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Now, just because it's sitting right here, okay, we have Quicksilver. I love this book. This is also the first book, and is it gonna be a trilogy? I think so. Only one book out. The cliffhanger, though, isn't too bad. This is also, I think, great for the romance girlies, great for beginners, such an easy, fun read. And you get Shadow Daddy Kingfisher, and he is like, this is everything you want in a book boyfriend. He is morally gray, he is witty, he's a little bit mean, he has a filthy mouth. The banter is chef's kiss. This is another one of those books where I think it deserves all of the hype that it gets. It is classic fae romantasy. You get a lot of your typical tropes, and they are tropes that are done so right. Like, listen, some people say books are too trope heavy and it's a trope that's done over and over again. If they're done right, I'm gonna eat up the same trope every time. I'm gonna eat up the enemies to lovers. I'm gonna eat up the fated maids. I'm gonna eat up the morally gray shadow daddy. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, it's not that serious for me. I would commit illegal activities in order to get book 2 in my hands, essentially. We also have vampires in this, which I wasn't expecting. I love vampires. I do. Yeah. Okay, then if you want something a little different, we have House of Bane and Blood. This is 1920s mafia meets romantasy. This was made for me because I am a mafia romance girly and I'm a romantasy girly. Put them together, you get this. It's also giving like Peaky Blinders vibes. And this is going to be a part of an interconnected standalone series. The first 2 books follow one couple. The next book hasn't come out yet, but it's going to follow a different couple. This is everything I need and then some when it comes to an arranged marriage. You get the tension, you get the angst, you get the longing, you get the banter. Our FMC is also such a badass. One of their first interactions, okay, she just smashes a whiskey glass over his head. And like, that does it for me. Forbidden romance, found family, definitely more romance heavy, but you still get that really engaging plot that made me incapable of putting this down. And with the ending, I had to immediately go into book 2. Book 2 was also really good. This was 4 stars. Book 1 was 5 stars. Another easy, fun read because I'm recommending so many series that just put you through the ringer. And this, you get it completed. You get the finished story for them and you get some pain in book 2, but it's not going to absolutely eviscerate you. So like, I'm trying to be kind. And bitch, you know what I know that you know. That I know. What? We need some YA recommendations. Now, I'm not the biggest young adult fantasy romance fan. However, there are a few series, by that I mean literally 2, that I love, that I will never stop recommending. If you want something young adult, no spice, but still the romance, listen, when romance is a subplot in YA fantasy romance, there's something so unique about it that just makes the angst and yearning, like there's actual yearning, hit so different. The Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy does exactly that. This is so whimsical and magical. I felt like I was teleported into a fairy tale. Our FMC Evangeline is also so refreshing. She is a girl's girl. She's not trying to be this badass, and I love that for her. She just wants her fairy tale happily ever after, okay? Is that too much to ask for? Apparently it is, because in Once Upon a Broken Heart, she makes a bargain with Jax, the Prince of Hearts, and that leads her on just this insane journey that she did not ask for. Book 2, The Ballad of Never After, is my favorite book in the series. A Curse for True Love, honestly, it was disappointing to me. I gave it, I think like 2 stars, I think. So, but I will still never stop recommending this, especially for Jax. Like, and then another YA fantasy romance. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't finished it yet. I still have to read book 3, but I'm still putting it in here because I'm gonna recommend it. And I hear book 3 is the best and I know I'm going to love it. This is Belladonna. The second book is Foxglove. And then the last book is Wisteria. This is a dark gothic romance, okay? Our FMC, everyone around her essentially dies. And she's trying to track down her family's killer. This is a murder mystery. And she gets the help, okay, of none other than our love interest, who is Death himself. I never thought that I would be so down bad for Death. And she's the only one who can see Death, and Death is very protective of her. We also get a lot of court politics and drama in here that I loved as well. I'm very excited to see how this ends. I can't believe I haven't finished this yet. I feel like y'all had to know this one was coming, okay? We have From Blood and Ash. Honestly, this series is more controversial than Zodiac Academy. It is way more hated. And then we also have the prequel series, Flesh and Fire. This is one of those series you're going to either love or hate. That's totally fine. I understand why people can't stand this book. It has its flaws. This whole series, the Blood and Ash series, is like a 4-star series for me. I had issues with some things, but at the end of the day, I loved it. I loved this series. It holds such a special place in my heart. Castile is such an underrated bookman. Some people don't like the FMC Poppy. I also have such a soft spot for her. I will fight for them. Even though I understand you if you don't like this series. Like, listen, I get it. Now, the prequel series, I think is even better, so much better. The writing is so much better. This, A Shadow in the Ember, the first book, 5 stars. One of my favorite books of the year. I loved this, but I also love the whole experience of reading these two series together. I am following publication order. I will leave a link to the TikTok that I posted with my recommended reading order for this entire universe if you want it in the description. It is crazy how much happens in this series. In the beginning, the whole time, I'm like, what is going on? What is happening? I have so many questions. I am so confused. I don't know what's going on, but I'm so invested. I need to know what happens. I'm like, I can't put this down. I'm kind of obsessed with this. What's going on? And like once everything starts to come together, it is the most satisfying, fun experience if you like that. Like if you like seeing all the little bits and pieces come together in this perfect puzzle, then I think you'll really like this series. But that's why I recommend reading it in publication order, because you will get so many Easter eggs from the prequel, and then you go back to Blood and Ash and you're like, oh my God. Also Castile and Daddy Niktos, like I can't believe more people aren't talking about these men. Like this is also for like my vampire girlies. They're not exactly vampires, but it is vampire adjacent. And if you're unsure about it, just read the first book. I genuinely think after reading From Blood and Ash, you can tell whether or not the series is going to be for you, and just go in with an open mind. You might like it, you might hate it, and that's okay. If you want more fae, okay, we have A Kiss of Iron and A Touch of Poison. This is a part of a trilogy. The third book, I think, is coming out this year. Also so underrated, so easy and fun to read. I describe this as like romantasy meets Bridgerton. Bridgerton in a fae world. Does that make sense? That is the vibes it's giving. Our FMC needs money to save her estate. She gets hired as a spy to sit on the queen's court and spy on this powerful fae lord. This powerful fae lord is Bastien. She has to play into the court politics, get in on the drama. Both of them have so many secrets. It's just this game of deceit and betrayal. Bastien is a scrumptious fae shadow daddy. His shadows are also very skilled. Another one that is just so easy to read. The world is very easy to understand. The plot is very easy to just like get into and immerse yourself in. I love this. Guys, we're almost at the end. I have 2 more series to recommend to you, and then I'm going to go take a nap. I feel like, oh my God, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. It's a lot of work. Now, both of these series are more high fantasy with a romance subplot. So if you're looking for that, these are for you. We have the Curse of Ophelia series. Book 1 is The Curse of Ophelia. There are currently 4 books out with a novella, and there's only 1 book left, so it's almost completed. Now, this is one of those series where I am so happy I stuck with it, because book 1, I'm not going to lie, this was slow for me. I think this was either 3 or 3.5 stars. I wasn't going to continue, but so many of my friends told me to push through. And I am so happy I did. It was so worth it. This isn't that long, because the rest of this is absolutely phenomenal. 2 years ago, the love of Ophelia's life left to enter this sacred ritual, and he never came back. She is dead set on finding him, so she decides that she's going to enter this exact ritual that everyone else thinks took his life. The romance, even though it's a subplot, like the relationships are so good, and you think it's going one way, it's not going the way you expect it. An amazing found family. The journey that all these characters go on together is such a long and painful one, but it is so good. We have meddling gods and angels, prophecies. Also the slow burn in the beginning is so good. I still haven't read the 4th book, and I'm still going to recommend this, like, with full confidence. Last but not least, bitch, because it's literally dark out now, okay? We have the Legends of Thesmar series. Another series though, okay? First 3 books, absolutely phenomenal. Last book, it's a completed series. Last book, disappointing. I also pretend that this did not happen. Still gonna recommend it though, because hopefully you will have a different experience. I know a lot of people that actually love this last book. So as a lot of things, could just be a me problem. Now in this world, the women are forbidden from fighting, wielding weapons, which is so rude, okay, if you ask me. But our FMC Thea, okay, she's for the girlies. She's a badass. She has been training in secret her entire life because her dream is to become a warrior legend. She ends up getting this rare opportunity to train at the elite guild to become a warrior legend, to go through all of the trials and tasks and tests to become a warrior. And she gets trained by none other than Wilder. Wilder is grumpy brute at its finest. He literally wants nothing to do with her. Which for some reason that just gets me every time. The training trope is scrumptious, but also meanwhile, amidst this training, there's this looming darkness trying to break into their world. You also get a lot of action and adventure. Like, I'm a sucker for a little side quest in a fantasy book. Like, you have a little side job you gotta go do. You gotta get on your horse with your friends and go travel somewhere for like a few days. So the options are endless for what's gonna happen. Like, apparently I'm just a hoe for a side quest now. Call me a side quest slut. So on that note, you already know what time it is. It is horizontal time. We're gonna get on a flat surface, be horizontal with my filthy, smutty, spicy book, and I'm gonna pretend like everything else doesn't exist. And you should absolutely do that too.